Hey everybody, Dutchsinse here. 5:04 p.m. Central Time on Friday, May 10th, 2013. And I've got you over here on my YouTube page. I'm going to take you over to my most recent upload. It's a radar pulse HAARP ring scalar square forecast, if you will. Definitely screenshots. Now I just want to give you guys a quick breakdown. I've been getting a lot of people telling me they want to hear me talk in the videos again, explaining these things. And for those of you who are new, I actually did this for almost a year and a half, 2 years, where I gave a full explanation on what I thought was occurring and a rundown of the different pulses we're seeing. Lately, over the last 6 months or so, I've been documenting it and uploading it either to my main channel here, Dutchsinse, or to Dutchsinse Reloaded, which is my backup channel, and scoring it to music, just showing the radar pulses. And then, after storms develop and hit the pulses, I'm doing something so basic, I'm coming in and taking screenshots of the storms that are hitting, comparing them to the screenshots of the pulse that occurred 1 to 2 days, up to 3 days beforehand, mashing them up and showing them as confirmations. I've done this over and over again now for almost 100 times, over 100 times. I've documented these things, a pulse followed by the storm that hits the center of the pulse. I've even gone so far as to put all the documentation together in a huge post. Not only have I documented the pulses as they've happened and the storms to follow up and hit those pulses, but I've went so far as to pull together all the information showing how I think it can be done. Lately being proved correct by experiments done by scientists, and the US Navy used radio frequency to produce plasma heating in the atmosphere. Physical pictures here, and scientists doing it in the laboratory to actually make tornadoes using microwaves. Now this was debated hotly for years that everybody denied it. I was run off YouTube, thrown to the dogs on YouTube. Now I've tried my best to prove that. Again, let's just go back. Let me take you back over to my confirmation page, where I've done this over and over again, up to current 2013, 2012, 2011, going back to when I first started documenting. Now there's times before 2011, before the midway through 2011, where I wasn't documenting it and just noticing it and talking about it. So where I started to document it all the way forward to today, as much as I could assemble, here it is. Let's just take you to one example. All right. This is how I've been doing it. Here's a screenshot before on top of the HAARP ring radar pulses that occurred, and these are what I believe to be high-frequency pulses being done from the ground-based station NEXRADS, which are having a resonance effect where the signal travels all the way to its conjugate point in the South Pole and then comes back, bounces back and forth for multiple days, and at the end result, we're seeing actual tornadoes, damaging winds, and hail form in that backscatter. And this is the backscatter we're seeing. This is literally a reflection off the ionosphere or atmosphere. It's hard to know which at this point, but definitely producing a CCN return, cloud condensation nuclei, actual ions in the air being produced by a ground-based frequency source. Maybe unintentional, maybe fully planned. We don't know that yet either. All we know is that pulses are appearing, storms are coming to the center of the pulses, the strongest part of the storms no less. So pay attention to where these pulses are. Scalar Square here, let me zoom it in. Pulse in Oklahoma City, pulse in Tulsa, Scalar Square over in northwest Oklahoma. Come forward 24 to 48 hours later, let's see, within 36 hours, look where the tornado forms. At the center where the square was. Right here, okay? This is just one example of many. Let's go over and look at the other pulses that occurred. Here's a different pulse from the same day. You've got May 7th at 9:38 p.m. You've got May 7th at 9:35 p.m., all right? Now this is Eastern time, this is Central, so they're 1 hour apart, and you can see it again. Pulses, and then the strongest part of the storm moved right into the center, right over Tulsa, producing additional multiple tornadoes, which I did document. Here they are. Okay, you can see all this activity if you want to come back and review that. So that's really 3 confirmations, or 2, on one forecast alone, which is just me showing you that the pulses are occurring and then coming back and showing you the storms that follow up those pulses. Over 100 times, folks. So that's why I don't do it now in the videos. What's the point? I've documented it over 100 times. It's scientifically proven to me that it does happen, not just to me, but to hundreds of other people, if not thousands now, that have actually studied this and looked into it. Speaking of studying it and looking into it, I've put together a huge post, which you can come over and read for yourself. All the documentation is there. This is one example of many. On the left-hand side, this is from HAARP. This is from the U.S. Navy, all right, on the left. They have a 3D diagram in the F region above the ground-based transmitter. This is color-coded by them, not altered by me at all. Here's the black and white pictures of the event, even showing rings inside of the plasma that was generated up in the upper atmosphere into the ionosphere. Okay, so on the right-hand side, this is an actual pulse that came out of Minot, North Dakota, recorded on NEXRAD radar. Compare the HAARP image on the left to the radar image on the right, and you'll see the color coding is the same, the 3D representation is the same. I would venture a guess that the area is smaller, of course, above the NEXRAD radar due to the peak pulse wattage at 750,000 watts as opposed to HAARP at 1 billion. But the radio frequency coding is the same. You can clearly see they both produce a ring effect, and that's actual plasma that's forming. And it's my contention, not just my contention, but it's actual theory at this point, that there's ionization that's happening at a distance from the ground-based receiver. Whether it's a natural effect, whether it's man-made, we're still trying to figure that out. It could be a natural modulation that causes the ionization to happen from a ground-based station over 750,000 watts, let's say. We don't know yet because the studies haven't been done from the ground-based radar angle. NEXRAD WSR 88 has not been researched enough to find out whether or not it's producing its own plasma. Now, it's my contention that they already know this and that it's being done on purpose. Can't prove that yet. All we can prove is that it's happening and that the storms are coming to the center of the pulses within 2 to 3 days. And again, here's more diagrams, and again, storms hit each one of these areas within 2 to 3 days. And I'm talking the direct dead epicenter of the pulse. Within that small ring there, no more than 50 miles across, we're talking about being hit. Now, I've documented this. We're on my HAARP post here. I've documented this over and over again, all the proof that you need to prove scientifically that this can be done, including corona effect discharge producing ions, including cloud condensation nuclei via frequency. Here's a company out of Texas, Acquiesce, who, over the past 10 years, the company Acquiesce has recently demonstrated this technology to government and humanitarian observer groups. The proprietary weather modification system operates by utilizing resonance signals to divert oceanic atmospheric rivers into areas experiencing severe drought. The Acquiesce system does not rely on chemical or biologically hazardous materials, chemtrails, which could potentially harm the environment. Okay, so here's Acquiesce, clearly doing it in Texas, 2012, with results. All right, so it's not even a matter of is it being done, it's a matter of why is it being done. That's where we are at this point. Here's a VLF signal. Okay, again, these are papers from respectable institutions. You can go download this from Stanford VLF site directly, showing the ring effect that happens from powerful ground-based transmitters when they're operating in a very low frequency. So here's a HAARP ring, for instance, in low frequency, showing as a low return, not a high bright pulse like the ones we were just looking at, but this is a low return ring resonance, most likely caused by some kind of ground-based transmitter, the NEXRAD, reflecting off the atmosphere to ionosphere, causing a resonance backscatter, which it is my contention is then causing storms. And there's real-time radar heating effects. These are from Intellicast and from the Weather Channel. You can go and see where the computer is detecting ringed signatures that are heated. It just so happens that these ringed signatures happen to be above powerful ground-based transmitters. These are high-frequency towers, high-frequency microwave towers. Here, this one's beneath an airport directly at the center. Those are just two examples of many. I've got over 20 or 30 examples just of the real-time heating happening above towers. Radio towers, burning up the airwaves. So here we are. Here's some more examples. HAARP one-hop buoy, where they placed the buoy all the way down at the coast of New Zealand to catch the HAARP signal to detect where is it penetrating. Is it coming all the way down to Earth? Is it being reflected back up? What they found is that when they do this experiment, the signal travels this purple line here, goes down to the South Pole, where before it goes down into the Earth, it's actually reflected back. The conjugate point reflects back, and the signal is trapped. And they can fill it, they can pump it, they can keep pumping more into it over a course of a certain amount of time. which is yet to be determined. I'm sure those experiments are very interesting. Okay, and then you can get down here, you can see the companies that are doing it. West Texas Weather Modification Association, weathermodification.org. These are all companies that are actively doing cloud seeding, and they use radar in conjunction with cloud seeding to observe those operations, which is apparently news to the National Weather Service. We won't even go there. All sorts of documentation on the attempt to outlaw these types of weapons, as they called them, in H.R. 2977, talking about using high-altitude, low-frequency weapon systems, plasma, electromagnetic, sonic, or ultrasonic weapons, laser weapon systems. This is to ban weapons in space. And they're talking about ground-based transmitters here, not space-based weapons. Okay, here's examples of other facilities: Sura, ISCAT, you've got Chile, and even down here you've got the Russians with Irkutsk, if I can even pronounce that properly. So it's not just the United States that's doing it, and surely it's not just for ionospheric research, as everybody would tell you. Stanford VLF Awesome Network is part of this. They work in conjunction with HAARP in Alaska, and they're all trying to do the same thing, which is frequency manipulation of the atmosphere, ionosphere, and even penetrating down into the Earth. Here's something from the U.S. Navy, showed this before. This is directly above HAARP. This is the magnetic signal, the magnetic frequency represented on a 3D plot, showing how the ionosphere, from the ground all the way to the ionosphere, is disturbed and perturbed in a circular fashion, a spiral fashion, as emanated from the ground-based antenna system. Here's more on the HAARP conjugate points, all the way down here to the South Pole and back, and how it pertains to VLF-ELF interactions, very low frequency interactions up in the Earth's upper magnetosphere, where this all takes place. They'll pump a high frequency wave all the way up here into the ionosphere, where it then modulates, cross-modulates into a low frequency, and then cross-modulates back down into a high frequency once it gets back down to the point. That's another thing that you could look into. Efficiency scaling is what it's called. Okay, and we could just keep on going down this list here. Here's an MIT researcher. You can come over here. We got into his back-end page. It's still open. He's got pictures in there from when he went to Alaska. And look what he's got pictures of. Okay, he's a HAARP researcher, went to Alaska to work at HAARP. And here it is in his parent directory. And you can go browse the parent directory to see all his stuff. All right, and it's pretty interesting to see. It's open for public use. It's not like you're hacking in anywhere. But here it is. And it's in public. AGW photos. Nothing but pictures of what we would call HAARP clouds, which really are very low frequency propagating global waves, as they're called, and we've documented that as well. You can come over here and read all about global waves and how they're supposedly made, man-made, by HAARP and other facilities. And we can just show you that here really quick. And that's in this PDF here, which also proves HAARP rings. It also talks about global HAARP resonance waves. I'll just wait for it to open. All right, and here we go. Global magnetospheric resonators. And there's your global resonator, your global wave. So we're talking about vast distances covered by VLF, by the way. And here's the 3D ripple effect that's caused by the global resonance wave. Look at that. What does it look like? It looks just like what the sky looks like when you start seeing these clouds that are generated via man-made stations. So ultimately, I could give you an explanation every time I do a HAARP ring update, but it gets to the point where it becomes a 10 or 15 minute talk, even longer, where we have to go in and explain it each time. So I've done these time to time in the past, and people really jumped down my throat in the past without the proper proof. This time, well, we have the proof, we have all the documentation, and this is just my site. There's other people that are doing this as well. Jim Lee resonated. Tattooed 1009. Several other researchers are keeping track of these things. So, much love, people, and all the links are down below, of course. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comment field. And over here on my website, if you have questions on the current weather, what's happening now, how are we able to see what's happening at these different pulse locations, we have multiple radars that you can monitor yourself. And again, the links are down below for that.